Hey everyone,
Hello, world.
it's Super Breakfast Friends Club. Is the name
It's
of this
that
show. That's
that
this.
we do.
You're listening to it right now.
I'm sorry.
If this was a mistake on your part, you still have time to leave.
I mean, we'll follow you forever, like a bad nightmare that you wake up from sweating, but you can leave.
The
You can
window
try.
the window for leaving has now passed.
Signed your name on our blood contract.
I'm Mike,
I'm not,
and should we just play an opening?
I guess.
座員たちと舞い踊る飲み捨てたロックンロール飲み干せば頭に夜が回るルーシーを空に探し夢と5つの共演だ潰れた部屋に音が鳴る何か足りないなら手のなる方へ確かめたい捕まえたい遠く逃げてゆく過去と未来忘れてない自分との約束だろう裏切られたって振り向かない諦めない無様にすがりついた姿も笑われてわからんって言われるけど最高の毎日さなそこのあんた本当に生きているの死んでないかい
The opening for this show didn't play at the beginning of this show, it plays at the very end.
Oh, so that's not the ending, that's the beginning.
Yeah, in all the other episodes, the opening plays first, and then there's another ending that we didn't get to see. The show is Shenmue, by the way. I just realized I didn't say that. Shenmue the animation.
I understand why they wouldn't have put it at the beginning of this episode, but at the same time, I'm extremely angry that they didn't, because I spent this entire episode wondering where the forklift was.
Oh,
That's pretty much the only thing I know about this show. To me, this game is a gacha simulator where you sometimes ride a forklift.
well, fear not. The forklift is featured heavily in the show,
Thank God.
but not here in the first episode. But yes, I very much enjoyed the use of forklifts in the opening sequence. It made me very happy to see him because, yeah, the forklift. The funny thing is, it is kind of a minor part of the game, but it's so memorable.
For being the most nightmarish to control.
It's not even that bad, but what it is quite late in the game, you get a job as a forklift operator, and every morning when you get to work, the first thing that you do is that you and all the other forklift operators have a race around the docks. That's like
That's pretty great.
that's the warm up for work, and and I think that's why it became such a memorable part of the game. But yes, Shenmue, the video game, was released December 29th, 1999 for the Dreamcast.
I can't tell if I thought that this game was older or younger than that, because it exists in such an uncanny valley of everything.
As the Dreamcast in general kind of does.
True.
Because that's the weird thing about the Dreamcast. It's a PS2 GameCube powered console that released like right in the middle of the lifespan of the N64. So the Dreamcast was released in 1998 and the GameCube was like 2001. So there's a good few years of Dreamcast there where it was still N64 era for everyone who didn't have a Dreamcast. But yeah, it was made by Sega AM2 specifically, who mostly did arcade games, mostly are known for their arcade games. They did Outrun, Afterburner, Hang On, Space Harrier, Virtua Fighter, and all of those were also, I'm pretty sure, designed by Yu Suzuki, who also designed this game. This game is
Neat.
like his magnum opus, I think.
I love that.
When it first entered development, it was going to be a Sega Saturn game, and it was going to be called Virtua Fighter RPG Akira's Story.
See, that makes sense. That makes sense to me because this is a very karate heavy thing.
Yeah, also, I don't think they changed Ryo's model very much when they decided he wasn't going to be Akira anymore. Because if you look at the screenshots from back when it was still a Virtua Fighter game, the only major difference in the main character's look is that they added a jacket to his model.
What about the Band-Aid?
Well, that's the thing, because Akira from the Virtua Fighter series has a scar right there where Ryo's Band-Aid is.
Let's just cover that up and bam, brand new character.
Yeah, so and it sounds like the basic plot was the same as well, because it was supposed to be a prequel about Akira's past, and it was about him traveling to China to avenge his father's death, which is what Shenmue is about.
Shenmue is about gatching and forklifting.
That's true. But I mean what it's supposed to be about versus what it's actually about. But yeah, Suzuki planned Shenmue as a multi-part epic that was supposed to be told across several games. He has said before that it would take at least 5 games to tell the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
The story is pretty much written. Like, before the first game was completed, I think the whole plot was planned out. And there are characters who first appeared in Shenmue 3 who we had artwork of way back when Shenmue 1 came out.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I hope that it eventually gets fully told, because I'd love to see what's left, but it was originally planned as 16 chapters. Shenmue 1 is chapter 1. Chapter 2 was actually cut and was released instead as a hidden comic that you could unlock in Shenmue 2. And then Shenmue 2 is chapters 3 through 6.
Well, that's at least a small step.
Yeah. It seems like the plans changed a bit, because although he used to say it was 16 chapters, apparently he's more recently said that it's 11 chapters, so I don't know if more have been dropped.
Maybe just consolidated.
Yeah, maybe.
Cut some of the fluff off of it, since it took 40 years to get Shenmue 3 out.
Yeah, I mean, the original Chapter 2 was supposed to just be Ryo's time on the ship between Japan and China. Because you can usually tell where the chapters are because they're broken up by location.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, each time Ryo moves to a new location from which he cannot return to the old location, that's usually a new chapter.
Every time Ryo gets kicked out of a new country or a new city.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, at the time, it was the most expensive game ever developed.
That's wild.
It was reported as having a budget of $70 million.
Jesus Christ!
But apparently Suzuki has said that it was actually closer to 45 million.
So, like, half that.
Yeah. And a lot of the budget for Shenmue 1 actually covered work on Shenmue 2 as well as laying groundwork for future games that didn't get made.
Well, this figure has quickly become much less impressive.
Yeah, it sold over 1 million copies, but it still failed to make back its budget.
Well, that's because you have to factor in parts of Shenmue 2 and future games that haven't existed yet.
That's true. Maybe Sega would have made their money back if they hadn't cancelled all those other games.
Right. Fuck you, Sega.
I personally think that Shenmue was way ahead of its time. I know you know that I have a bias here.
You? I didn't know that about you.
I freaking love Shenmue. It's one of my top 5 games of all time, probably.
And I've sat by your bedside while you mindlessly have played it until you died.
Have you watched me play it before? I can't remember.
I haven't watched, but I've heard some real-time feedback as you've gone through the series.
It's a good time. I think a lot of my favorite games are things where people would be like, really, that game? But, you know, I don't judge games the same way most people do. A game has to touch me in an inappropriate place for me to remember it fondly.
For the shame to kick in, and I finally accept it for what it was.
I don't like good games.
That's not true.
Well, I like a game. I like to. When a game is too polished, I never get that same love for it that I would for a game that's a bit rougher around the edges. You know what I mean?
Kind of, but that just immediately makes me think of any Bethesda game.
Yeah, that's different.
That's too rough around the edges.
There's different levels of rough around the edges. I love
like
New Vegas though.
That's true. New Vegas is very good despite all its brokenness.
Yeah. Sorry, what were you saying that I talked over?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Cut that part.
Don't cut it. The people have to know I've been silent.
But the reason that I think it was ahead of its time is because it kind of began the trend of like 3D open world games. It wasn't the first open world game. There had been open world games for forever. I feel like you could argue that most JRPGs are open world games. But
are they? Because they're usually pretty. You have to get certain things in order to progress to certain points of the map.
Yeah, a lot of like much older JRPGs though just have a really big open map that just restricts you by the levels of the enemies, but you could go to places you're not supposed to. I guess it's not quite the same thing.
Like Fallout, you could go straight to the end, but you would get killed to death.
Yeah. But like pretty much every AAA game that comes out now is open world in the way that Shenmue is. I think Shenmue was kind of a trailblazer on that. It also invented the QuickTime event, for better or worse.
Fuck you, Shenmue.
I think that like previous games had things that you could call QuickTime events, but Shenmue coined the term.
For an entire console generation, we were haunted by that.
And occasionally those haunts still return.
Not as frequently, thank God.
But at the time the game came out, the genre was so unique that they had trouble defining it. Like, there had never really been a game like this. So they didn't know what genre to call it. It's like not exactly an RPG. So Suzuki dubbed it Free. That was his name for the genre. Free. And according to him, Free stands for Full Reactivized Entertainment.
All right.
Yeah, okay. I always thought that's a bit weird, but okay, whatever.
Doesn't quite roll off the tongue, but all right.
It's a very slow-paced, methodical game, which is a deal breaker for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's kind of what I love about it.
You gotta really want to love Shenmue.
You've got it's a game. It's a good game to chill out to.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not a game where you're like running around fighting people a lot. A lot of people come into it knowing that it's got fighting in it and they expect a lot more fighting than it actually has. You're probably only getting like 10 fights throughout the entire 30 hours of gameplay.
And for a karate championship revenge quest, that's not a lot.
No. Most of the game is wandering around talking to people, taking notes about things. It's like It's kind of like Myst in that way, I guess.
I don't know. That doesn't feel like a fair comparison.
I mean the note-taking specifically.
Okay. I did have to take a lot of notes in Myst.
Yeah, it's open world, but it's on a much smaller scale than most open world games tend to be. Like GTA will give you an entire city, right, to explore.
Mhm.
Red Dead Redemption gives you like a county to explore.
I thought Red Dead gave you like 3 states and part of Mexico.
Maybe it does. Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah. It's been a long time since I played it. But Shenmue gives you a neighborhood. But because it's just a neighborhood, it means that that neighborhood is extremely detailed. And it feels really alive, and that's what I love about it. Like, you'll start to recognize the random people that you bump into on the street and develop attachments to them in a way that you won't in most open world games. Like, most of them are randomly generating their NPCs.
Yeah, because you're expected to start killing them at any second.
Yeah. But Shenmue, every NPC is a specific character, and they all have their routines that they're going about. The devs created over 300 unique characters, all with names and birthdays and stuff. Some of them are just members of the staff inserted into the game.
Birthdays?
Yeah, they all have birthdays. They don't celebrate their birthdays, but they've all got like an assigned birthday.
So it's not quite
It's
like
not
Rune Factory level.
Yeah, it's not Animal Crossing here. I mean, I think you only have a couple months to solve the mystery. If you don't solve it in time, then Landy gets away. So, but anyway, Shenmue 3 we should touch on.
Should we?
Yes, because it came out a little while before this show did. It was kickstarted in 2015 and then finally released in 2019. 18 years after Shenmue 2.
Just a little break.
Yeah. It raised $6 million through crowdfunding, and it had a mixed reception.
Yeah, I remember hearing a lot of the stink when it first came out.
Yeah. I remember, I think I tweeted, like at the time before it came out, I tweeted that I was anticipating a lot of people who'd never played Shenmue being very disappointed when Shenmue 3 came out, and it turned out that it played exactly like a Shenmue game.
Right. Someone put Shenmue in my Shenmue and I'm mad about it.
Yeah. Because I'm sure like most of the people who were getting hyped up for Shenmue didn't actually know what Shenmue was at the time.
Right. They were just told to like it.
Yeah. They just know that it's something. They just know that people who were fans of Shenmue had spent 20 years begging for more Shenmue. So they're like, oh, this must be fantastic. And then they go in expecting a regular game. And then they get a Shenmue.
A Halo?
Yeah. My only real complaint with Shenmue 3 personally was that I wished that they hadn't made the graphics modern. I would have preferred it if it looked like a game from 2001.
Yeah, but I bet that would have been a hard sell.
It would have been a hard sell, but it plays like a game from 2001. And it's written and acted like a game from 2001, so they might as well have gone the whole way and made the I feel like people would have been less confused.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't understand the graphics thing that people demand these days. So I can't pretend
That's true.
to speak from their point of view.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a PC that's like 10 years old.
My PC can barely run pixel art these days. I am thankful if I can get a 3D game to work.
Yeah. I was going to say you could probably run more 3D games than you think you can, but then I hesitated on that.
It was lagging just trying to open Microsoft Word and Discord at the same time.
It does okay with Left 4 Dead, though. Right?
It does, yeah.
We'll give it that.
Probably have a lot of the shadows and stuff turned way down to make it as minimally demanding as possible while still looking decent.
I remember when I was at uni and you were the one with the more powerful PC.
Ugh, that was a lifetime ago. Now I have to pay rent instead of putting all my disposable income into garbage.
I started uni a decade ago.
Oh my god.
Almost, yeah. Couple months, it will have been 10 years. Anyway, to move away from the slow, encroaching march of death, I'm done talking about Shenmue games now. Let's talk about the show, shall we?
I guess that's what we're here to do.
This show first aired on February 6th, 2022, both on Adult Swim's Toonami block and Crunchyroll. It was a joint production between the both of them. So it aired in the US before Japan, even though it was made in Japan.
Finally, we get something before them.
It turns out that the dub was exclusively on Adult Swim and the sub is exclusively on Crunchyroll.
That's weird.
Yeah. Because I went to Crunchyroll looking for the dub, and I was like, where is it? It's not here.
Did they just not make one?
I knew they made one because I saw the trailer. I saw the dubbed trailer, and I was like, oh yeah, don't want to watch that.
But what if it was like how the games were, where the Japanese version is very much a serious thing, and then the English dub is just a corny karate movie?
Then I would have watched it. That's why I didn't want to watch it. No, because for anybody who doesn't know, Shenmue is a love letter to kung fu movies. And when they were translating it into English, Yu Suzuki insisted on translating it like an 80s kung fu movie would have been. So essentially, the English version of Shenmue is a comedy, while the Japanese version is a serious revenge story. And that's one of the things I love about it. Like, the English version is kind of terrible, but in a beautiful way. And people were very upset about that in Shenmue 3. People were upset that the dub had like bad dialogue that was kind of silly and awkward. But like, you look at the cast and it's big names. So it's not an accident.
Right. They're just telling them to act like this.
Yeah, it's on purpose. And all the people complaining about the fact that the dub is like corny and silly are just not getting the joke.
It is kind of that's a deep joke. That's a hard joke to get your brain around.
I love it. It's great.
I love it, but had I gone into Shenmue not knowing that, I do not think I would be able to pick up on it.
I think a lot of people, because that's Japanese humor, you know?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't get it. It's the same. I know I bring up Sonic all the time on this show, but it's the same with like the Shadow the Hedgehog game, where so many people outside of Japan think, oh, that game took itself way too seriously, and it was trying to be really grim and dark, but it's a comedy game. And it's one of the funniest Sonic games. It's the same with Dragon Ball. So many people outside of Japan don't realize that Dragon Ball is a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Dragon Ball is a comedy.
It's the most ridiculous thing ever.
I haven't seen a source on this. This is a story one of my friends told me. So if it's not true, I'm blaming him. But I have heard that somebody went to Akira Toriyama and showed him Dragon Ball Abridged and asked him what he thought about the fact that like fans had turned Dragon Ball into a comedy. And his response was, it's already a comedy.
He's just translated it into an American comedy type.
So Americans taking things at face value. Well, it happened recently with GTA, bringing up GTA again.
Oh, right.
Where it turns out that like so many Americans had taken GTA at face value and not realized that it was a satire of America. Like, GTA is written by a bunch of Scottish people who think America's stupid. The whole game is them making fun of America, and so many Americans didn't get it.
I think people take their media very seriously, and so when subtext exists, they gloss right over it.
Yeah. But anyway, let's get back to Shenmue. This show was animated by Telecom Animation Film, a company owned by TMS, who are owned by Sega. I learned something here. So I love TMS. I've always loved TMS. They made a lot of the shows I grew up with, and their animation is usually fantastic. I found out here that what I've always thought of as TMS might actually be Telecom's work that is just credited to TMS.
Uh-huh.
Because apparently Telecom worked on Inspector Gadget, DuckTales, Gummy Bears, Rescue Rangers, Alfred J. Quack, Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, Batman, Sonic X, Lupin III, Porco Rosso, and Spirited Away.
So, like, all your favorite things.
Yeah, a hell of a lot of them. So is Telecom Animation Film actually the studio I've been a fan of all these years? And TMS have just been taking credit for their work?
You're gonna have to do some real sleuthing to answer that question.
I tried. I did a little bit, but it's hard. It's hard to find out because it seems all of their work is credited to TMS. But anyway, I genuinely went into this expecting another Funimation dub, by the way. But it's not. This one was dubbed by Sentai Filmworks, a successor company to ADV Films. ADV Films are the company that I used to mail order weird anime tapes from.
Oh.
Back in the VHS days. Yeah, they're the ones who dubbed the Sonic movie and a bunch of the old Street Fighter movies and stuff.
I just want to mention that when you said Funimation, my brain immediately said 4Kids. So I've been thinking about a 4Kids dub of Shenmue while you've been talking about that. And
No.
It's filling me with joy.
I do want to say, though, when I saw that this wasn't a Funimation dub, I thought, oh, cool. That means we'll have some more interesting stuff to talk about than we usually do when we're talking about Funimation dubs. But in practice, what it means is that it's still just a group of people who all share the same credits. Except now I don't recognize any of those credits. Now it's just a bunch of people who worked on the same 5 shows, except I don't know what those 5 shows are anymore.
Yeah, I feel like anime voice acting is an incredibly insular community.
It sure is, and I'm sad about it.
Yeah.
I guess that probably means it's hard to break into, too.
We're gonna have to start doing our own fan dubs of anime no one's ever heard of. Put it out on YouTube before it gets taken down.
Do our own fan dub of Pac-Man, the Pac-Man show. Hanna-Barbera's Pac-Man.
Do a fan dub of Hametsu no Mars to rival the other fan dubs of Hametsu
God.
no Mars.
Yes. and let's translate it like Samurai Pizza Cats.
Okay. Translate it like Shin-chan or Ghost Stories.
Yep. So this episode is called Thunderclap. And
oh yeah.
It's written by Kento Shimoyama, who has written a lot for various Kamen Rider and Sentai projects. Except for anyone who doesn't know, Sentai is basically the original Power Rangers before Saban translated it into Power Rangers. He also wrote the Valkyria Chronicles anime, which we will look at some point, someday.
Whenever.
All right, we're into the show now.
Yeah, the show starts, and it's all dramatic.
It is. It opens with the ending to Shenmue 2.
Way to spoil everything!
I know. This is... I think I know why, though, because this is also the... It's the ending to Shenmue 2, but it's also the opening to Shenmue 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're trying to tie this show to Shenmue 3. This show doesn't make it to Shenmue 3's plot. It ends at the end of Shenmue 2. So I think what they're trying to do is to drive sales to Shenmue 3 with this show.
By spoiling it. at the beginning of the first episode.
This show basically, I feel like this show is basically a catch-up for people who want to play Shenmue 3 but haven't played the first two and don't have 50 hours to spare.
Yeah. So this show actually has a point to exist, unlike some of the other ones we've covered.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, because this show is basically doing a similar thing to what Danganronpa and Phoenix Wright did, where it's, taking an existing story and presenting us with a truncated version of it. But this version, well, let's talk about this at the end.
We're gonna forget.
This makes more sense as a conclusion.
We're gonna forget.
I know. But yeah, the actual Shenmue theme is playing over this scene, which is nice.
It was nice. Very pretty.
Yeah.
その者東の凸国より海を渡りて現れり若者姫し力未だ知らずかの身を滅ぼすこともかの願い叶えしことも
And Shenhua's dialogue is, I think you hear it in all three games, what she says here. You hear it at the beginning of the first game, the end of the second game, and the beginning of the third game.
We don't actually know who she is yet.
We don't, and we also don't know who she is at this point in the game either.
Okay.
She makes appearances throughout Shenmue 1, but you don't even find out her name until the very end of Shenmue 2, so... Yeah, Shenhua is played by Haruka Terui, who was not the original game voice for Shenhua, but took over playing her for the third game.
I mean, it's cool that they still got the actual game actress, though.
It is. I couldn't find out much about what else she's done, but she played Urara in Godita 2 Rage Burst. Is that the one we played?
That is the one we played, but I don't remember who that is.
Okay. Rage Burst sounded familiar, so I was like, is that the one?
I remember my rage bursting a few times.
We need to go back. I do want to finish that game.
Yeah, that game is wild. It's not quite as fun to play as a Monster Hunter, but boy, is it a long game.
It's like Monster Hunter with more high school anime.
Yeah.
In English, she's played by Natalie Rial, who had a lot of anime roles, none of which I recognized.
Cool.
But I did write down what seemed to be some of the more well-known ones. She plays Momo Belia Deviluke in Moto to Loveru.
Cool.
And she plays Litka Mofer in Log Horizon.
All right.
I hope that means something to somebody.
Somebody out there knows.
It ain't me.
And it's not me either. Please send letters to our P.O. box informing us, old people.
Yeah, P.O. Box doo-doo doo-doo. Do is a number, right?
It's 2. It's 2 in French.
Anyway, now we return... No, we don't return. We go for the first time to November 1986. Yokosuka. Yokosuka is a real place.
Yes.
In the Kanto region of Japan. And apparently the game's version of the city is accurate, even using meteorological records from 1986 for the in-game weather.
Now that is some wild and wacky bullshit.
It's dedication for sure.
Wait. Is that... So... Because I have some weather questions about this episode.
Okay.
So later in the episode, it starts to snow, and then is immediately preceded by a thunderstorm.
The thunderstorm doesn't happen in the game.
Okay.
It's just snow. I think
I was very confused.
Yeah, the thunder was added for dramatic effect, I guess, to the anime. But yeah, in the game there's no snow. Like when I say the meteorological records for the in-game weather were accurate, I'm talking purely about the game.
Okay. I wasn't sure how closely the anime followed the game.
Fairly, but it does take some liberties.
Some real meteorological liberties.
It takes some liberties with 1986's weather patterns. Shenmue's Yokosuka is restricted mostly to the Dubuita Street area. Good. I don't know this for sure, but I'm gonna guess that Yokosuka was chosen because it's a fairly small city, but it's also the site of a US naval base, so there's a steady stream of foreigners going in and out, which, is conducive to the plot of Shenmue.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. That explains Tom.
It explains a lot, but most of it doesn't really come up in this episode. But there's a lot of not just American characters, but also Chinese characters present in Shenmue's Yokosuka. But yeah, the anime actually credits the Yokosuka city government for helping with the show.
That's cute.
It's strange because the show's fully animated, but I'm assuming that means that the backgrounds are like referenced from real locations or something.
Probably, yeah.
It's a credit that I would understand fully were it a live action show.
Hey, they're doing their best to make it as true to Yokosuka as they can.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
That's a level of love and dedication you don't really see.
That's true. So we get to see the Hazuki Dojo very, very accurately represented here from how it looks in the game. Like, I think they just took screenshots from the game and drew them.
Probably.
Ryo's on his way to a big fight, and he is here talking to Fukusan and Ine-san.
By this point, I had completely forgotten how much Kung Fu was a part of it, and I just thought that he was going to wrestle his way to university.
I think that was his plan. This is earlier than the game begins. I will let you know when we get to the point in the plot here where the actual game starts, but this is all new content for the show at this point.
You mean you don't have to go to school and wrestle some bullies?
No, you don't. That's not real.
I want it to be real. I want to live that fantasy.
And it is real now. It's been retconned by the show.
Yeah, but it's not in the game.
Yeah, they didn't. There's no DLC.
The School Days DLC.
If you bought the game at release, you get a code for the for the school fight DLC.
The game at release in 1998.
So we have Ryo Hazuki, our main character. He is played by Masaya Matsukaze, who has been playing Ryo since the first game. He's always been the voice of Ryo.
That's precious.
Yeah, I love that this is something I really love about Japan, that they can be very protective of their voice actors. They will go out of their way to try and keep the original voice as much as possible, usually. So I think that's cute. But Masaya got his start playing the Blue Ranger in Denji Sentai Mega Ranger.
So really, everything along this process is just Super Sentai and Kung Fu all the way down.
There's a lot of Sentai in here. Denji Sentai Mega Ranger was the Japanese equivalent of Power Rangers in space, apparently.
Cool.
That's after my time. So I don't know anything about it.
No, but I think it's a great direction.
I pretty much only know Mighty Morphin Power Rangers up until the movie, and then that was it. I was off the Power Rangers wagon.
Yeah. I was into Power Rangers when I was like 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. He was also the voice of Morty in Pokemon. He played Blues in Mega Man NT Warrior. Blues is known as Proto Man in English. For anybody who doesn't know that, Blues is the better name.
For any Philistines. Yeah, but they got rid of the music thing in general in the translation, so...
Yeah, I know. But I liked it. He also played Teru Mikami in Death Note. He played Yasuhiro Hagakure in Danganronpa.
Oh, I know that one.
And he played Suiryu in One Punch Man. In English, Ryo is played by Austin Tyndall, a name I recognized.
For good or bad reasons.
He was Kiyotaka Ishimaru in the Danganronpa dub that we watched.
Oh, okay.
He has a really big filmography. He's been in Dragon Ball and My Hero Academia, but I don't think he was very important characters because I didn't write down who they were.
Good job.
Who else was here? Fukusan. Fukusan is played by Satoru Ito. He was not the original voice of Fukusan.
Oh no.
He has a very small filmography. The biggest thing I could find was that he was additional voices in Monster Hunter Stories 2.
Cool.
In English, he's played by Ben McLaughlin, who played Hermes in something called Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon?
I'm gonna hazard a guess and say yes.
He also played Gengoro in Seven Seeds and Leonardo in Log Horizon. I don't know what any of those things are.
Mm-mm.
But good for him.
Good job.
And then we have Ine-san, who is played by Mayumi Kario. She is also not the original voice. And the only thing in her credit list is this show, so...
So she was created just to be the voice of Ine-san.
Yeah. Maybe she's...
Grown in a lab.
I'm going to say that maybe she's Yu Suzuki's mom or something. Ignoring the completely different family names.
Yeah, it could happen.
And then we've got Joanne Bonasso playing her in English. According to the Shenmue wiki, at least, she doesn't seem to be credited for this role.
Huh.
But assuming that the wiki is right and this is her, she also played Reiko Tamura in Parasite and Sumire Muroto in Black Bullet.
I have read Parasite, but I have not watched it.
Yeah, I know of it, but I haven't read or watched it. I don't know of Black Bullet.
Mm-mm.
But at least I know what Parasite is.
Is that South Korean film?
That's the one. That's the one, officer. So, for some context here, we aren't really told much about these characters in the show. In the game, most of what we learn about them is through conversations that we can have with them that are optional.
But we don't have time for that now.
Yeah, there's no time for that in this show because there's a lot of characters in Shenmue.
Yeah, we've got karate fights to win.
So, as a little explainer for both your benefit and the audience's benefit, Fukusan is a live-in student of the Hazuki Dojo.
Okay.
He is not blood related to the family, but he is essentially Ryo's brother, like an older brother.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryo actually describes him as such when he's speaking to Shenhua in Shenmue 2. He says that although they're not blood related, he's like his brother.
Yeah, they don't give us even a taste of that in the anime. I was just like, who is this man and why do I care?
Yeah, he's a student of Iwao Hazuki, Ryo's dad, who just lives with them, I guess. He has his own room in the Hazuki household. Ine-san is the Hazuki family housekeeper. She's also not a blood relative, but she's essentially Ryo's mother figure. Ryo's real mother is never mentioned. There are some very small hints at a woman being around in the past, but Ryo doesn't remember her, and I'm assuming that the games are building up to finding out about Ryo's mother because in Shenmue 1, when you're down in the basement, there's a part where you can find an old flowery decorated comb hairpiece type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's treated as mysterious, and Ryo's like, what's this? And I'm assuming that's foreshadowing of this is something left over of his mother.
I'm assuming that his mother, or the woman that he remembers, is a yokai.
I would love that. I mean, listen, Shenmue does get into some supernatural stuff as it goes on. It took people aback because it takes until the end of the second game for any supernatural things to happen. But they're out there.
As it turns out, Shenmue 4 is just going to be a survival horror game where you karate fight your way through ghosts and yokai.
Yeah. Just like in the real 1988.
I was alive then. I remember. It was a strange time for everyone.
Oh, so Ryo heads outside, where we find Yamagishi talking to Iwao, Ryo's father.
Yeah, who is this man and why is he so impressed by the koi fish?
I was surprised to see Yamagishi here, actually. He's a fairly minor character in the game. He's one of the first leads that you get when you're investigating what happened, but that part of his story isn't shown in the anime. It's left out. So I'm not sure exactly why they chose to introduce him so early, but he later on in the game he can teach you a move that he apparently once taught to your father in the past.
Maybe that's why they put him there, just to be like, hey, remember that guy? He's back. He's gonna teach you how to karate good.
I guess including him here was just to let us know that he's a friend of Iwao, but it's so strange because learning that move is fully optional in the game.
Well, not in the anime.
But anyway, Yamagishi is played by Junichi Sugawara, who may or may not have played Yamagishi in the game, because Yamagishi's Japanese voice in the game is unknown, apparently.
Oh.
Yeah, nobody knows who played him, but I didn't recognize much of this guy's filmography. He had some small roles in Cowboy Bebop and Doraemon, and he's been active for long enough that he could have done the original game.
What if nobody knows who the voice actor is because they just found a strange and mysterious hole to a mysterious dimension and they just held up a microphone to it?
Oh, he was played by the real Yamagishi.
Were someone to crawl into that hole, they would isekai into Shenmue 1.
And be very disappointed that they've just isekai'd into real life Japan in the 80s. Oh, I don't even get a Digimon.
Unless they were super into Vaporwave, and then they'd be like, yes.
In English, Yamagishi is played by Carl Masterson, who played Mushin in Shin Sekai Tori, and Professor Faceman in Marduk Scramble.
What a great role.
Yeah, he also played Fuku Kitashirakawa in the Tamako series. I don't know what any of this is, by the way.
No, but we're guessing it's a thing people enjoy.
I'm just reading out words here. And Iwao Hazuki, Ryo's dad, is played by Takayuki Sugo, who is not the original voice actor, and I was very disappointed that it's not original voice actor. I wonder if you'd be able to guess who the original voice actor was.
No.
Well, let me give you some hints. This game was this is like a martial arts guy who wears a karate gi all the time in a game that was originally designed to release on the Sega Saturn.
Are we talking about his original Japanese voice actor?
Yes.
Are we guessing that it's Segata what's his name?
It was Segata Sanshiro, yes.
Segata Sanshiro!
He was the original voice of Iwao Hazuki.
Incredible!
His real name is Hiroshi Fujioka. When I saw that he didn't reprise his role here, I got worried that maybe Segata Sanshiro had passed away, but he hasn't. He's still active.
Good.
Which means...
Still out there spreading the good word of the Sega Saturn.
It means that there is no excuse for him not playing Iwao here. For those who are uninitiated, by the way, Segata Sanshiro is a promotional character that Sega created to promote the Sega Saturn in Japan. He is a karate man who would show up and violently demand that you play the Sega Saturn. Segata Sanshiro, Segata Sanshiro, Sega Sanshiro, Toya!
You should absolutely go and watch all of the Sega Sanshiro commercials on YouTube because they're incredible.
Yes, you may have seen a gif of the one where he throws a man into the air and the man comes back down and explodes violently on contact with the ground. They recently did a Sega Sanshiro sequel film for Sega's 60th anniversary.
Incredible.
It's about his son. Because Sega Sanshiro had like a full plot arc, and it ended when they decided to discontinue the Sega Saturn. His plot arc ended with him riding a missile into space to save the world. And then, 20 years later, they did a new live-action film about his son, and Segata has been missing ever since, riding that missile into space.
That's why he didn't reprise his role, obviously.
Oh, you're right.
Still in space, fighting to keep us all safe.
They had to maintain the canon, you're right. Oh no, maybe he comes back in the film. I didn't watch it. I should.
We have to.
We should cover it for the show. If we ever do our movie spin-off, we'll absolutely cover that because that counts.
It counts because I say it counts. Because I love Sega Sanshiro.
He had a game.
Did he?
Yep, there's a Sega Sanshiro game.
Oh, thank God.
Anyway, let's talk about the guy who actually played him in this episode, though.
Fine.
Takayuki Sugo. He played the first Hokage in Naruto.
Okay.
I don't know who that is. He was in Bleach. He played Glay in Blood Plus. Do you know who that was?
Oh, it's been 100 years since I watched that anime. I can't remember.
I know. I feel like that's the response you give me every time I bring up Blood Plus, but I keep bringing it up anyway.
It's still been 100 years, I guarantee.
And he plays Shiryu in One Piece. I don't know.
I don't either.
In English, he's played by Luis Galindo. I don't know for sure. He's listed as the actor on the Shenmue wiki, but not anywhere else. So I don't know.
Why in the year 2022 is there so much mystery around voice actors still?
I don't know. Yeah, you'd think the show came out this year. Why am I having trouble finding out who played these characters? But yeah, he didn't do anything I recognized either. He was in Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? And he played Shoi in Akame ga Kill. I don't know what that is.
I think I've heard of it, but that's the extent.
Yeah, I haven't. I've heard of it because I researched it for this. Iwao is being super strict. He tells Ryo that he's not good enough.
Yeah, he says that a lot in this episode.
Ryo says that he can never make sense of his advice, which is funny because Ryo not listening to his father's advice is a major theme of the first game.
But also, to be fair, the advice he's giving is pure nonsense.
Yeah, it's cryptic. I feel like it's not as cryptic as this in... I don't know. In the game, I always felt like his advice was very straightforward, but almost like too straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryo was maybe looking for something in it that wasn't there. Because his advice in the game is very much like, eat vegetables!
What could he mean by that?
Be good to your friends.
I don't understand!
Meanwhile... we head to Bailu to see Shenhua. This doesn't happen in the game. We don't see Bailu until the very end of Shenmue 2. And Shenhua herself only appears in the opening and ending scenes and as brief glimpses in strange dreams that Ryo has occasionally.
Uh-huh.
She also appears on soda cans, candy, and cassette tapes and things in stores, but I don't think that's canon.
I think that's just a giggle.
Yeah. I guess, again, like trying to tie this more into Shenmue 3. We see a glimpse of her with a lamb. She can talk to animals. Everyone else thinks she's crazy.
Oh,
That's
I think she's a little crazy too.
Yeah, she definitely seems a little crazy. But that's what happens when you live out in a rural village in China in the 80s.
I guess so. I guess we can't exactly test that theory now.
No. I don't know, I feel like people in rural villages are still crazy no matter what country you're in.
Oh, absolutely. In America, they're wild.
Ryo's winning his high school karate tournament. That's where we are now.
Winning doesn't even feel like a fair thing to say because no one can get within 5 miles of this man before he matrix chops them into space.
Yeah, he says nobody has ever landed a hit on him before.
Right.
It's weird. Ryo is not this powerful in the game. He gets smacked around a lot in the game.
Good, that'll learn him some manners.
For the most part, in the game, you never really feel like you are more powerful than whoever you're fighting. It always feels like a fair fight, but that's not the case in the show.
No, it's always extremely advantaged to one person. Not always Ryo.
And it's always ridiculously over the top in a way that it never is in the game.
I do have a question about that.
Yes.
The cut on Ryo's cheek.
No.
Is that explained as a supersonic chop?
In the game, he already has that cut before he meets Landy. He already has the Band-Aid on, so... there is no model of Ryo without a Band-Aid in the game.
Okay. I needed to know.
Yeah, no. We'll get to that, though. But yeah, everything we're seeing here, this is all anime exclusive. The characters here are all anime exclusive, and they won't be seen again. But it's kind of nice to see some of Ryo's pre-trauma life, even if it doesn't feel that necessary.
Pre-trauma life?
That's what it is.
I think it's a little necessary when you're translating the game into an anime.
Maybe. It's definitely here to, like, show us who Ryo is. A little bit.
Because we don't have 3 hours to play as him beforehand.
Yeah, Ryo wins the fight against this like high school bully character. I couldn't understand why this new guy, I don't know his name because he's new, but he's clearly supposed to be Ryo's teacher or something.
Oh yeah.
Why was he upset that Ryo won?
I don't know. Maybe he placed bets against him.
Maybe, and they cut that part out and forgot.
It was very strange that as soon as Ryo wins, you see just like a defeated look on the teacher's face.
Yeah, we see all of Ryo's school friends cheering, and then the camera pans across to his teacher, who is like hiding his face in shame or something. I didn't understand.
It was very strange. Because like immediately preceding that, there was a scene where the teacher pulls him aside to be like, it's gonna be fine, you're gonna win, it's great. And then he's upset by it.
Yeah. But he seems happy in the next scene when they're walking back.
This man is sending a lot of mixed messages.
Yeah. I don't think we see him again after this. He's not in the game. So I guess it doesn't matter. Meanwhile, there's a black car speeding through the streets. And if you've played the game, you know what this is foreshadowing.
I mean, I already knew what this was foreshadowing.
Yeah, but that's because I've told you about the game.
Yeah, but I also don't remember things that you tell me for longer than half an hour.
That's me. You've confused us.
All right, 1 hour.
Tom passes on the celebration with his classmates to head home. Did I say Tom? I meant Ryo. I have Tom on the mind.
Said Tom.
I have Tom on the mind because this is where Tom shows up.
Yeah, Tom is the best character.
Tom is my favorite character, yeah. He's a very memorable character in the game because as you're walking around Dubuita Street, you can, like, as you approach where his hot dog truck is, you can hear the music coming from it. And he's always dancing outside.
Oh, yeah. We get a sneak peek of some of that dancing.
Yeah, he never stops dancing. And whenever you need new information, he's usually a good place to stop to chat with him.
Because everybody just divulges to the hot dog man.
Exactly. He is criminally underused in this show. I think he only appears in this episode.
What?
I know. It makes me angry because he and Rio are quite close in the game in a way that we don't get to see in the show. Towards the end of the game, there's actually a really touching scene where Tom teaches Rio a breakdancing move. And then he tells him that he has to go back home to America. And he gives you like a free last hot dog. And he tells you that even if he's back in America and they're a million miles apart, Rio will always be one of his best friends.
Aww.
And it's adorable. And then you get a scene where Rio's in the street, in Dobuita Street, and he just looks up and a plane flies overhead and he just says, Tom. I love it.
I just like to think that they're psychically connected. He always feels Tom.
You can call Tom on the phone in Shenmue 3 and it made me so happy.
Oh, good.
Tom is played by Akihiro Tajima, who is again not the original voice of Tom. He also plays Yuan, Mark, and Cool Z later in this show.
Cool Z.
Yeah, you'll love Cool Z.
Oh, yeah.
He also plays Hijiri in the Akiba strip anime.
Haven't seen anime.
No, well, we're gonna. Don't worry. And he plays Guan Yu in Record of Ragnarok, which I don't know about.
No.
According to the Shenmue wiki, in English, Tom is played by Shannon Reed. Again, like, only the wiki says this, so I don't know if it's accurate. He is mostly credited for additional voices in various anime dubs. Mm-hmm. So if it's true that he plays Tom, then this is probably his biggest role, sadly. As far as I can tell, if he is the one who's playing Tom here, then it's the first time that Tom has ever been played by someone racially appropriate.
Progress.
Yeah. You said to me that you could tell that Tom had an American accent in the Japanese version.
Yeah, you can tell that his Japanese is not quite as punchy. Not only because he uses a mishmash of English and Japanese. Like later when he's describing Lan Di, instead of saying Chinese in Japanese, he says the word Chinese to describe his clothes. But also his accent, you can tell.
Yeah. I went and checked the dub to see what they had done with his accent. And he just has a regular American accent in the dub, which is a big departure from the game.
Oh no.
Where Tom, for some reason, for Tom's English voice, they decided to go Jamaican.
Oh no.
But they used an actor who it seemed like they had only ever had a Jamaican accent described to them.
Oh no.
So it's like kind of Jamaican, but every now and then it's Scottish.
I saw a guy wearing this weird coat.
What kind of coat?
It was a deep green, maybe velvet or silk, like something Chinese.
That's Landy. What happened?
They almost hit one of my customers, so I gave them a piece of my mind. But that man, he gave me this glare. I ain't never seen such a cold stare, man.
And it's just really all over the place.
Oh boy.
It's an especially weird choice because he does directly tell you that he's American and that he's from America.
Well, why? Like, if they had changed that and he says, I have to go back to Jamaica, like, how is that even that big of a difference?
Right. Or they could have simply given him an American accent.
But then how would we know he's different, Mike?
That's true. And it's always interesting seeing how different things handle this. Like, what's her name? Is it Fantina? In Pokemon, yes. Where she has I think in the Japanese version, she speaks with an American accent, and in order to translate her foreignness, they made her French for the English version.
Mm-hmm.
And Looker, I think, had a bit of that, where in the Japanese version, he usually speaks with his words in the wrong order, which implies that he's not a native Japanese speaker.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, they kept that intact, but it didn't quite carry the same meaning.
Sure didn't.
And it just meant that he was talking like Yoda the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of games will just like shift the globe so that Japan becomes America and America becomes somewhere in Europe.
Yeah, well, that's what Phoenix Wright did too, isn't it? The Ace Attorney
Yep.
series.
Franziska von Karma went to study in Germany.
What? So was it America originally?
Yeah.
Okay, I actually didn't know that. I don't think, and I'm gonna assume that there was a similar thing with, the yellow one. Yeah, that's it. Because she studied.
I honestly don't remember what her deal is in English.
She studied abroad somewhere, but I can't remember where.
Yeah, I'm sure it was the same thing.
Yeah. Anyway, Tom offers Rio his usual hot dog, but Rio says he can't today because he has practice. And Tom gives him a thumbs up and says, "Oh, sorry, man. Yo!"
Oh, sorry, ne? Yo!
And I loved it.
I do want to talk about one thing regarding Tom. When we first see him and he's given a free drink to the girls, and he says, "Let's eat tone," and then they translated that, a phrase that is in English, to chow down, ladies.
They did the same with yo, though. He says yo, which is not a Japanese phrase, but in the subtitles, it translated that as peace. Very strange.
Very strange choices.
But, this is where it starts to snow.
Yeah, very suddenly.
Yeah, and Rio is passing by Sakuragaoka Park, a location from the game, and possibly from real life, I'm not sure.
Probably, considering the lengths they've gone to.
Yeah. He notices Nozomi confronting Enoki and Nagashima. These are all characters. In fact, this is a scene from the game, but it happens much later in the game.
Mm.
It happens after the traumatic event.
Oh.
But I think that they've moved it earlier to kind of help establish Rio's... They're trying to establish Rio as a good guy, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So this is actually an optional encounter that you can have in the game. Although, when Shenmue 2 came out for the Xbox, they packaged it with a DVD called Shenmue the Movie, which was just like an hour and a half of cutscenes from Shenmue 1 to catch you up if you hadn't played it. And that also moved this scene to the very beginning. So I think that's just like a standard retcon of this story.
Okay.
In the game, the bullies don't push Nozomi down. They just make some lewd comments. But Rio steps in before they have a chance to touch her. But Nozomi is introduced. Nozomi is a very important character. Rio's extremely awkward love interest.
Extremely awkward love interest. That is the name of my debut album.
Which one?
This is debut album number 16.
Okay. Nozomi is played by Haruka Fushimi, who was not the original Nozomi, once again. I feel like for a lot of the female characters, they've gone with like younger actors, and I kind of assumed that maybe they had gone for a more modern idol or something.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the first time she's played a named character, apparently.
Huh.
Her only other role was an unnamed student in Little Witch Academia, so...
That's a good show to be in, though.
It is. In English, she's played by Kat Thomas, who played Rachel in The Curse of Professor Zardonicus.
Okay.
She also played Hibari in Seven Seeds, and Tamako in Gintama. And here's my favorite thing that I found out about her. She played Good Girl in Secret Lies of the Gossip Teen.
I love it. It sounds like trash.
It's a live-action show which, as far as I can tell, never made it past its pilot episode.
Oh boy, I wish we had an excuse to watch that for the show.
All the characters have titles rather than names, so they're all credited as like athlete, bully, geek, things like that.
I want to be geek.
My favorite thing about it is that the school in the show is called Beehole High.
Did nobody run that past an editor?
I don't know. I want to think that whoever wrote it was like, yeah, I got away with it. I called my school Beehole High. It's bee as in the insect.
Oh.
So it's like B-E-E hole, but it's beehole.
I was thinking it was some crazy new age thing, like to be whole.
No.
Like, well, that's a dumb name, but so is beehole.
And like anytime you hear it, you're gonna think about buttholes. You're gonna do it.
That's right where your brain is going, to someone's butthole.
So anyway, Rio beats up the bullies. Once again, he feels comically overpowered in the show compared to what he does in the game. Because I got smacked around like crazy at this point in the game.
Maybe all this means is that you were not karate champion ready, but Rio is.
Maybe. Apparently, I didn't know this, but apparently there's a secret code you can enter in the game which will cause Nozomi to join the fight using the same moves that Rio uses. And that's hilarious.
She's been a secret karate champion this whole time.
So, yeah, the bullies leave. Rio gives Nozomi her handkerchief and leaves as well. It's pretty clear that she's into him.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty clear in the game as well, but I feel like they hammer it home a little bit harder in the show.
And it's also pretty clear that Rio doesn't notice.
Yeah, Rio... One of the things I love about Rio is that he's extremely awkward with everybody. But Nozomi is a particular awkwardness.
So he's a relatable hero, is what you're saying.
He'll, like, later in the game, she does, like, confess her feelings to him. And he's just kind of like, oh.
I see.
Yeah, do you know that that's the thing, or was that just you saying that?
That's just me saying that.
Okay, because I see is like one of his most used lines.
He just strikes me as the kind of guy that is an IC guy.
He is, yeah. You get used to just hearing it. That's one of his most commonly used phrases whenever somebody says something. And sometimes it feels inappropriate.
I can't imagine why.
But it's really funny. You just get used to hearing, I see. In exactly that tone. Every time. Because it's just the same clip always used.
We couldn't afford more than one try.
Yeah, they weren't going to have this guy get in the booth and say, I see 50 times. That would be cruel. Anyway, let's talk about Nozomi a little bit.
I guess.
Nozomi has actually been redesigned for the show.
Oh.
She's the only character who has. Everybody else looks exactly as they do in the game. But in the game, she looks very Japanese, and she's been redesigned here to look a bit more Western, I think.
Why?
Well, I'll get into that. But she's got lighter hair, and her facial features have been changed a little bit. And I think it's in support of her backstory. Because through conversations with her in the game, we learned that her parents are in Canada and that that's where she grew up.
Oh.
She moved to Japan to live with her grandmother during junior high, and that's where she became friends with Rio, because he defended her when the other kids bullied her for not being real Japanese.
Oh.
The game never specifies her parents' races, and I think most people assumed that they were both Japanese and they just moved to Canada for work. They're immigrants living over there. But I think what's being implied here is that she's mixed race. I think maybe her...
That's what I would guess.
Yeah, I think her mom is Japanese and maybe her dad is Canadian. But yeah, it's strange. I do kind of struggle to think of this character as Nozomi because she looks so different, but I understand the change
Mm-hmm.
if that's what it's for. And now we're actually at the point where the game opens.
Now we're at the trauma.
Yep, and it's recreated really faithfully. Like, as he's running up to the dojo, it's the same shots that the game used. With like the broken dojo sign and the black car parked outside.
Yeah, but I also find it very interesting that the game starts just right into the trauma.
Oh yeah, the game gets you right into it immediately. We're not even in the game. We're not even told who Ryo is at first. He's just running up. We first see him running up to his house and knowing that something's wrong because the sign's broken. So he runs into the garden and Ine-san is injured. And she tells Ryo to go help his father. This is what happens in the game too. So Ine-san is the first NPC you meet in the game, and she's lying on the ground in pain.
But in the show, we first see Fuku get kicked out of the front.
No, that happens next.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. He runs through the garden and finds Ine-san, and then as he approaches the dojo, because he has to run around behind the house to get to the dojo.
Gotcha.
And then Fuku-san comes flying out the door. Yeah, and this is all exactly how it played out in the game. Except for the addition of a thunderstorm.
Is the thunderstorm pertinent to the much later plot of Shenmue?
Not that I know of.
So they've just kind of called this episode Thunderclap and put a thunderstorm post snowstorm for funsies.
It's just to add drama, I guess. I don't know if there's ever a thunderstorm in Shenmue.
They didn't have any thunderstorms in 1980 whatever Yokosuka.
In November? I don't think so.
That's true. November's not really a thunderstorm. I was so confused as to the time of year this took place because the weather made no sense.
Well, yeah. And that's the thing. It makes more sense in the game. But yeah, thunderstorms are really more of like a summer thing, aren't they?
Yep.
It's just for the drama. It has to be. So they could have some lightning flashes during this fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, Landy is here, and he wants the mirror. Landy is played by Takahiro Sakurai, who originally played Landy in the game. In fact, Landy in the game was his first role.
Oh.
We've talked about him before because he played Leon in Danganronpa as well.
Oh.
He also played Tentomon in Digimon Adventure, which surprised me because that's a very different character. He plays Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy in everything that Cloud Strife has had a voice in.
That's a pretty big role.
He's the voice of X from Mega Man X. He's Haseo from Dot Hack. He's Jin from Xenoblade 2. These are all huge roles. They're all main characters.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from Jin, I think they're all the lead character of those games. And Jin is like the lead antagonist, so...
Including Digimon?
Well, he's not the lead Digimon, but he's like the third main Digimon. Maybe the fourth. Maybe the fifth. But he's important anyway. He's the bug one.
That doesn't mean anything to me.
You'll probably recognize him if you saw him.
If I were to go to google.com right now and just type in the bug Digimon.
I'm trying it now. The bug Digimon. He's the third image. He's the third image that comes up in Google search.
The Scyther?
No, that's the second one for me. Are you getting different ones?
Yeah. You said Tentamon, right?
Yeah.
That's the fourth, and I have never before seen that in my life.
Really? That surprises me. Maybe the anime was bigger here than it was there. I don't know.
I just never watched the anime.
No, I know, but there was merch.
I guess. I wasn't out there looking for it because I didn't watch the anime.
Well, we'll change that. You'll realize how wrong you were to have not
Now,
watched it.
20 years later, you're going to fill your room with Digimerch.
I'm going to turn you into a Digimon fan.
You can try.
I know you'd like it. I know you would.
Well, now I have to hate it on principle. Just to be a contrarian bitch.
You don't have to do that to me. I know.
I don't have to, but I find it enjoyable.
Oh, okay. In English, Landy is played by Scott Gibbs, who had a lot of dubbing roles that I didn't recognize. He played Lieutenant Barber in Starship Troopers Traitor of Mars.
What even is that?
It's a Starship Troopers anime.
Cool.
Apparently. I didn't know that was a thing.
Me neither.
He also plays Tobio in Haikyuu, which seems to be a soccer anime.
I think I've heard of it.
I haven't. Landy also feels comically overpowered compared to what he was in the game. And this is a guy who's supposed to feel overpowered.
Yeah, he feels very ultimate form of the final boss in the anime.
I think because they made Ryo's power so dramatic, they had to increase Landy's as well. The fights in the game feel a lot more grounded than this.
Yeah, but when you're starting off your anime with a boy that's never even been touched in karate fights.
I know. But yeah, like you said earlier, Landy cuts Ryo's face by swinging his arm near it.
It's a supersonic chop.
Yeah, that's not what happens in the game. Landy didn't do that. He already had the bandage on in the game. But like the game, he does get Iwao to give up the mirror by threatening to kill Ryo. And then once Iwao gives it up, he asks him if he remembers Sunming Zhao.
Is that his father?
It is, but we didn't find that out until 20 years later. And honestly, this plot point still isn't fully explained, although we do have more details of it now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, thanks to Shenmue 3, we finally know that Sunming Zhao was Landy's father and was a very close friend of Iwao.
Oh, and he karate murdered him?
We don't know that yet. Ryo still doesn't believe that his father could have really killed someone. And trying to find out that is a big driving force in his quest.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe someday we'll know.
Maybe in 40 years.
Yeah. But Landy fatally wounds Iwao, and Iwao's last words are, "Keep friends, those you love, close to you." Shenmue 1 is mostly about Ryo ignoring these words.
I just thought it was funny because it sounded like a tutorial. Like, Ryo, this is how you will get good at playing the video game.
Ryo, press R to duck. Yeah, he tells him that. Shenmue 1 is mostly about Ryo. He gets so focused on his revenge quest that he kind of pushes away everybody around him over the course of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then Shenmue 2 is about him learning that that's not helpful and finally accepting help from the friends that he makes.
Mm-hmm.
The show kind of doesn't go in that direction. It's a bit different.
He's already kind of friends with everybody.
Well, that's true in the game as well. Like, you begin friends with everybody, but over the course of it, a lot of people try to help you, and Ryo kind of refuses their help.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people try to talk you out of what you're doing, and he refuses that too.
Why would you ever want to talk someone out of a karate revenge quest? A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I know. Do you want to go on one? I could get killed.
That would be pretty fun.
I'll see if I can make any enemies. Any kung fu enemies.
It might be a little hard for me to become a karate master at my age, but I can try.
Yeah, well, that's what this plot's about, isn't it? So
That's true. I don't really have the basics of karate down, but I'm gonna have to learn. I'm gonna have to go through some montage training.
there's a detail of the game's plot here that's left out of the show. Possibly retconned, although the game doesn't really make a big deal of it either. But all of this is happening in the game on Ryo's birthday.
Oh.
Specifically his 18th birthday.
That's fun.
Yeah, they don't actually give us the specific date in the show. They just say November. So I don't know. They've possibly retconned it to not be his birthday. Nobody mentions that it's his birthday in the game. We just like know when you find out what his birthday is, you're just like, oh, that's the same day. Oh.
Yeah, I guess if it didn't really factor into the story in any way, there's no reason to put it in the anime.
Yeah, I guess not. This is where Chai appears, watching Landy leave.
Yeah, what the hell was that?
Chai doesn't appear until much, much later in the game. I don't know why they've chosen to insert him so much earlier in the story.
I don't know, like, they had really made it a point where Ryo had already talked himself out of going on this karate revenge quest, but then they have him show up, and then it starts.
Yeah, I guess maybe they just wanted to give him more of a driving reason to go.
More of a driving reason to go than watching your father get karate murdered?
I know. Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, Chai is played by Yoshimitsu Shimoyama, who was not the original voice. But he got his start in the same Sentai series that Ryo's voice did.
Cool.
He was playing Blue Centurion. He also plays the Sugormin in Kaizoku Sentai Gokaiga.
Yes.
That's the Japanese equivalent to Power Rangers Super Mega Force.
Okay.
He also appears in the Parappa anime.
Oh, hell yes.
And he played Gutsman in Mega Man NT Warrior. In English, he's played by Greg Ayers, who we've talked about before because he played Monokuma in the Danganronpa anime.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people think that Chai was based on Gollum from Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies, specifically the Andy Serkis portrayal of Gollum.
Uh-huh.
But that version of Gollum didn't appear until a couple years after this game came out.
I was gonna say, the timeline doesn't exactly check out.
So, if anything, Gollum would be based on Chai. Because they in the English version of the game, they sound basically exactly the same. They move the same. They're both like very similar in their portrayals.
Me? Work? For Landy-sama? That's my dream!
They're both creepy crawlers.
Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe Peter Jackson played Shenmue and then was like, this is what Gollum should be like.
I like to think that between filming his epic tale, he would sit down with some Shenmue.
He's an adopter of technology. I could see him having a Dreamcast. Anyway, yeah, Chai is a big deal, but he isn't a big deal yet in the game. He shows up probably about halfway through Shenmue 1's plot originally, so I was surprised to see him this early. And at the Hazuki Dojo, he never comes to the Hazuki Dojo in the game.
Maybe he's always lurking in the background like the G-Man.
Maybe. I guess. It's possible.
If you look up to the rooftop on a certain day at a certain time.
Some days later.
How many? Who knows?
Who knows?
Some.
The game probably tells you exactly, but this doesn't. Because the game gives us the actual date. It's the 29th of November that Iwao's killed, so I guess it probably gives you more detail than that. But there's a police car here at the Hazuki Dojo. In the game, there's never any suggestion that the police were called. And if you try to dial the police yourself on a phone, Ryo will hang up immediately and say, no, I can't involve the police in this.
Well, I guess it is implied that his father is a murderer.
I guess so. Or maybe that's the reason. I always thought it was strange, but maybe that's what it is. Maybe
that's what I would guess.
It's because I guess it's implied that his father was involved in some kind of shady dealings.
Yeah.
But in the show, Ine-san just hands over a bunch of documents to the police.
And here's the books that I've meticulously cooked.
Ryo doesn't think it's going to help. He wants answers, and Ine and Fuku discourage him, tell him to think about preparing for college instead.
Instead of going on a karate revenge quest.
Then we see Nozomi at school. We never get to see a school in the game, even from a distance.
Where does... Oh, okay, never mind. I misheard the sentence.
Oh yeah, there is a school. We just don't get to see it. Because sometimes when you bump into Nozomi, she'll ask why you weren't at school today and things like that. And you're like, but my dad just died, damn it.
My dad just died and I'm on a karate mission.
So Ryo's just sitting at Sakuragaoka Park, staring at a father and son playing on the swings.
Yeah, that was pretty dark.
Yeah, he's angrily staring as well. He's like mad about it.
Why does he get to have a father and I don't?
What if I just beat him up and take his father?
Push him off the swing and then he'll have no choice but to push me instead.
That's how it works. That's the rule. Yeah, we get the first of many flashbacks to Ryo's childhood. This is a pretty common thing in the game. You'll like look at something around the house and then you'll get a flashback.
That's fun.
Of some advice that he gave him when he was a small babby Ryo. But this is the... So at this point in the game, you're following leads. You're asking people about the black car.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you would normally go and meet with Yamagishi because somebody tells you that Yamagishi hurt his back jumping out of the way of a black car that was speeding through the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So you would go and speak to him about it. But he's just completely left out here, even though he was introduced earlier.
Yeah, at this point, he isn't even really interested in going on his revenge quest, and it's just kind of an accident.
Yeah, and that kind of bothered me. It's all by coincidence here.
Yeah.
But yeah, you would, in the game, you are just following like leads. You speak to people, they tell you different things. You find out that Yamagishi, Tom, and Nozomi all encountered the black car. But all of that's left out. Instead, Nozomi just catches up with him on Dobuita Street. And they have a characteristically awkward interaction. That's very game accurate. The part that isn't game accurate is Ryo laughing. That was really strange to me.
It lightened the mood too much. We needed it to be a stern silence afterward to really convey the meaning that we got in the game.
That's what it would have been in the game, yeah. I don't think he laughs even once throughout all 3 games. It's pretty rare for him even to smile.
I love it. I love the idea of the conversation they had about going to get hot dogs with zero lightheartedness involved.
Would you like a hot dog? I could go get you a hot dog. I see.
Just say that you're hungry.
Yeah, when they reach Tom's, he tells them about the black car. In the game, the car didn't hit his truck. It almost hit one of his customers. And then that led to Tom getting into a screaming match with the men inside the car because he was so angry.
Good for Tom.
Yeah, that's kind of left out here. Here he's more passive about it. He's just like, oh, they hit my truck.
Yeah, he uses that as an excuse to never be in the anime again. He's like, I'm shutting down the hot dog truck because they sideswiped me.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I just took it that he's like closing for the rest of the day while he cleans up, but he really doesn't show up again, so maybe he did just shut down forever.
He said he was closing down for a while. I took that to mean like he had to take the car in for some body work. He's gonna take a vacation after that.
Somebody dinged my truck. I'm leaving Japan.
I'm not taking the truck with me.
This place is mean. God, I want hot dogs now.
That's pretty good.
I've had hot dogs the last 3 days in a row, but I want more.
You have a problem.
I do have a problem. It's that every summer I get into just a hot dog furor. And all
You're
I
out there
can...
trying to guzzle those glizzies.
Yeah. Yeah. Drowned in ketchup. I overused the ketchup to a probably dangerous degree.
I would say that any amount of ketchup is kind of a dangerous degree.
Well,
I'm not the biggest fan of ketchup.
I love a ketchup. So yeah, Tom's truck. He's closing down his truck. He tells them to come see him again, which they will not. I'll miss you, Tom. I love you.
R.I.P. Tom.
It's the end of Tom for the anime.
I'm gonna think of Tom every time I see an airplane up in the sky, which is quite frequent because I live right next to an airport.
Who doesn't?
That's a good point.
I live right next to one too. So does Rio. So they go for ramen instead. And this scene...
It was weird.
This scene threw me for a loop. So Nozomi and Rio are in the restaurant. It's a ramen place. It does exist in the game, and it does look like this inside. He talks about Landy, and nearby, a man named Liu overhears and butts in. And it feels really weird and forced.
Yeah, because they don't use Landi's name at all, right? They just talk about like a man in a green Chinese outfit.
No, Rio does say his name.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
that's what causes the other guy to chime in.
Gotcha. It was still weird.
It was still weird, yeah. And he just like hands him all this information about Chinese cartels.
Right.
Out of nowhere, from like 2 tables away in this restaurant where he's sitting on his own.
He's just kind of guessed. Oh, that's right, because he's guessed based on the fact that his name is Landi, that he's involved in the Chinese underworld.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to tell you how you come by this information in the game.
Okay.
Because, just to recap, Rio has come by this information because he bumped into Nozomi, who offered to buy him a hot dog, but then the hot dog place was closed, so they went to a ramen place instead, where a strange old man overheard the words Landi and gave them a bunch of exposition about the Chinese mafia.
Yes.
For no reason, unprompted, unasked for. In the game, you have to spend a few days investigating to find out this information.
That doesn't make any sense.
From the beginning, there's a few different leads you can follow. Whichever lead you follow, it will eventually lead to you learning that Landi is probably Chinese, which will send you searching for Chinese people in the neighborhood to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
You can look into... I think you're told that a lot of the Chinese immigrants tend to go into either being tailors, chefs, or barbers, I think. So you go around and ask all of those people. Eventually, it will lead you to this restaurant, which is owned by the son of the man who was talking here.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll tell you that he is second-generation Chinese, so he doesn't know that much. But his father might know something. His father, this man, up until this point, has been in the hospital, so you couldn't find him early. But you having this conversation triggers him being discharged. And from then on, if you go to the park during the day, you can find him there relaxing. And then if you ask him about Chinese people and ask him about the name Landi, he'll tell you about it. All of this has been bypassed in the show, and I understand it being bypassed, but I wish it had been bypassed with a montage instead of a weird coincidence.
Right, just a string of happy accidents.
Yeah, it feels strange. The show doesn't really do this again. I've watched all of it, and the rest of the show is Rio investigating like he does. So this episode is the only... Because when I got to this point of the episode, I was worried. I was kind of like, is this entire show just going to be Rio finding out everything he needs to know by a long string of increasingly unlikely coincidences?
That could make for a very funny show.
It could. I would like to see it, but not as a Shenmue show, I don't think. But anyway, Liu tells Ryo that Landy sounds like a cartel name, and Nozomi leaves. And then Ryo enters the Hazuki dojo, where he finds Chai inside. This doesn't happen in the game.
Yeah, and he's trying to find the other mirror.
Yeah, at this point in the game, I don't think that Chai has any inkling that the Hazukis have a second mirror. I think Ryo finds it not even knowing that there's a second one.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't until Ryo is like taking it to people to try and get it appraised or whatever that Chai finds out about it. And the first time you fight Chai in the game is in the arcade in town, and it's way later.
In the arcade.
Yep, and you can beat him, but it's extremely difficult and you're intended to lose. Because Chai is supposed to be another, like, not as powerful as Landy, but way more powerful than Ryo at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the show, Ryo just kind of easily beats him up.
Well, yeah, because this is where he finally understands the secret that his father was trying to impart to him through cryptic wisdom.
Which was what again?
The first step is apparently to realize that his opponent is stronger than him and then scrutinize their movements.
Okay, that's right.
So I guess up until this point, Ryo has just accepted that he's stronger than everybody he's ever faced.
And he's never needed to scrutinize their movements because they've always missed.
Right, because he's a speedy lightning boy and he doesn't even have to move.
Yeah, I don't think he even did move in that first fight. I think he just knocked the guy out before the guy had a chance to do anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, he beats Chai up, Chai runs away, and Ryo tells Fuku and Ine, who've heard the commotion and run round to the dojo, that he intends to investigate his father's death. In the game, he's already deep into investigating it by this point.
Right.
And he's also in the game keeping it secret from Ine-san because she does not approve.
Right, because she worries about him.
Exactly. Eventually she finds out and tries to talk him out of it. I think she finds out through Fuku because Fuku-san has a big mouth. But she does give you the letter from China, just like in the game.
Mm-hmm.
She gives Ryo the airmail envelope that arrived from China.
The difference, though, is that in this one, Ine just kind of accepts that she can't stop him the second he makes up his mind to go on his karate revenge quest.
Yeah. In the game, she keeps warning you off, like, almost until the very end. I think at the very end, when you don't have the money that you need to get to China, I think she does give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's literally, like, right when you leave that she finally accepts that she can't stop you. But yeah, this letter is an important plot point. It was a letter, it was a warning to Iwao, but it arrived the day after he died. And then Ine kind of sits on it for a bit because she doesn't feel like it's the right time to give it to Ryo yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Shenhua again for a second.
Just doing her thing.
And then that's the end.
That's the end. Then we get the beginning at the end.
Yeah, we get the beginning, yeah, the opening theme. The opening theme is called Undead Noid.
What?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Like the guy that you avoid?
Yeah, he's a zombie now.
Karate zombie.
And let me tell you, that'll really ruin your pizza. God damn it, there's Undead Noid on this slice.
When they say avoid the Noid, it's for your own good.
It always has been.
True.
This song is by Kashitaro Ito, who is a Japanese pop artist who hides his face behind a fox mask so nobody knows what he looks like.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Smart move, too, because then he can have a somewhat normal life.
Yeah. So, that's the show. It's pretty faithful. It's heavily truncated, but what's interesting is it's basically the same thing as the Ace Attorney anime was, but it doesn't feel as detrimental to the game experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because the problem with Ace Attorney is that knowing the answers up front would make the cases easier to solve and kind of ruin a lot of the fun of like the twists and turns of figuring it out. Whereas in Shenmue, the answers themselves aren't that important. It's more about finding a way to arrive at those answers.
I gotta say, after watching this anime, I would be interested in watching the rest, and it would make me interested in playing the game.
Yeah. I know I've tried to get you into the game before, I think.
You've talked about it, and it's not that I'm unwilling to play it, but I know it's a commitment.
It is a commitment. Yeah. But it's a fun commitment. Where you
True.
can go and like waste some time playing some classic Sega arcade games while you're waiting for your next appointment.
Trying to get the Sonic that I want out of the gacha machine.
You gotta get SBO. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I would still rather replay the game than watch this. But, you know, the game's world is so full of life and people that I became attached to over the course of playing it. And it's impossible for any show to recreate that.
Mm-hmm.
The show's just not long enough. It can't be long enough. So
it would have to be more slice of life than action, and it would be like 84 seasons long.
Yeah. Like, I in the game, I would go visit Tom every single day. And you can't put that in the show. You can't just have a conversation with Tom every 20 minutes in the show. But seeing him so briefly in this is just really sad to me.
Yeah.
And I know the show, from having watched more of the show, I know that it has increased the role of certain side characters to the detriment of others. And I understand it. Like, the characters they've chosen to increase the roles of, I get it. But I wish Tom had been one of them.
Yeah. Tom really was the heart and soul of this episode.
Yeah, because there's a new aspect of the story. You very much do things alone in the game. And in the show, they've added this aspect where a lot of the friends Ryo has made come together to help him towards the end of the Shenmue 1 story. And I'm so sad that Tom isn't one of them.
Oh.
He should be.
It feels like an injustice.
Yeah, it sure does.
I guess it's too soon to say that there was a legacy for this.
Well, I guess there's no legacy yet because this only came out a few months ago.
Yeah.
I'm going to hope that the legacy of this show is that Shenmue 4 gets made. My ultimate dream for this would be that this show does well. I think it was doing pretty well last time I looked. I think it was getting well reviewed. I would like this show to do well. I would like that to push more sales to Shenmue 3 for people who want to see what happens next. And I would like that to lead to Shenmue 4 being made. My fear is that they will just do the rest of the Shenmue story as further seasons of this.
Oh, yeah.
Which I could see happening. At least we'd get the story, but it wouldn't be my preferred way of experiencing the story.
No, but if this is an 11-part epic, it might be the only way we get the full story before the creator dies.
It might be. It might be. Well, let's hope that he wrote it all down. I don't think he's that old. Let me have a look. He's got.
No, I'm not saying that he's old, but if it's going to take this long to get 3 of the steps done.
Yeah. Well, he's up to. I don't know what chapter it's up to right now. It was up to chapter 6 already by the end of Shenmue 2, which would mean it's half over if there's 11. So maybe one more game could do it.
Maybe.
But I would like 2 more games. He's 64. Uh-oh. Yeah, okay. He better get cracking.
If he's not at least writing this in novel form or light novel form.
Yeah, for whoever's going to take over.
Mm-hmm. So that they can release it posthumously when it takes 84 years to push out a new Shenmue game.
Yeah, I want the last Shenmue game. I mean, they've got to put him in it as an NPC, immortalize him.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'd like that.
That'd be fun.
I know there's a guy in Shenmue 1 who was semi-famous in Japan for appearing in like Mega Drive commercials.
Uh-huh.
And he's in the game, but it's very, very hard to meet him. I think you have to like keep playing well into January or something, and then he shows up in a restaurant and you can meet him. It's just like a weird Easter egg that nobody outside of Japan understands.
Those are the best kinds of Easter eggs.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, on this journey into Shenmue.
Thanks for joining us on our karate revenge quest to avenge the death of Tom in the anime.
I hope you've enjoyed this peek around 1986 Yokosuka. If you enjoyed our show, please consider telling someone that you enjoyed our show and that they should enjoy our show too.
You could send them the link. You could barrage their house with eggs, screaming about it. We don't choose the method.
We just choose the madness. Consider liking and subscribing on YouTube if that's where you watch this. Listen,
if that's what you're into.
Are you into that? I don't know. I'm just trying to please you.
I'm not gonna yuck your yum.
If you would like to hear some bonus content, you could head over to our Patreon and kick in some cash if you have any on you. We don't judge.
We don't have cash on us, so we understand.
We'll take any amount. $1, $9.
$50.
You can also find us on Coffee. Thank you, Mel.
Yeah.
And
do you remember the coffee?
Oh, I didn't even say the Patreon link, did I?
No.
Those links are patreon.com/superbreakfastfriendsclub and coffee.com/superbreakfastfriendsclub. I'm going to edit all this to make it coherent.
Good luck. Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter at xbreakfastfc.
For your latest in sports ball paraphernalia.
Yeah, that's what we have. And that's all we have. Bye!
You're not gonna give them their Twitch?
Nah, not today.
Not in the mood.
Oh shit, there is something important. Thank you to our existing Patreon supporters. Mom.
Love you, Mom.
Here's my. Oh,
you.
Go ahead.
No, mine was dumb. Go.
No, I want the dumb.
You're not getting it. Go.
All right, fine.